Major funding for this program has been provided by grants from Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and Perfect Building Maintenance, New York Community Bank, All Nation Renovation, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, Greenberg Traurig, LLP. Additional funding has been provided by grants from AVR Realty Company, LLC, Briarwood Organization, Capital One Bank, C.B. Richard Ellis, Cushman & Wakefield, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Eastern Consolidated, Hal Fettner, Durst Fettner Residential, Stephen Napolitano, First American Title Insurance Company, Friedman, LLP, Gemini Real Estate Advisors, LLC, Genova, Burns and Gian Tomasi, Grubb and Ellis, Investors Savings Bank, Jack Joffa and Associates Real Estate Consultants, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Madison Realty Capital, Markham, LLP, Marcus and Millichap Real Estate Investment Services, Margolin Weiner and Evans, LLP, Massey Knackle Realty Services, M&T Bank, Meridian Capital Group, The Moynihan Group, Newmark Knight Frank, Orphanides and Associates, Siami Development, Inc., SJP Properties, Sterling and Sterling, Inc., RAL Companies and Affiliates, LLC, Spandrel Property Services, Urban American.
People in New York and around the world love shopping. They go to retailers, they go shopping for Halloween, they go shopping, all over. So today I have brought in the gurus of retail who understand what's happening in the retail market. My guests today include Jeffrey Roseman, the Executive Vice President and Principal at Newmark Knight Frank Retail. Bobby Carey, who is the President of Aurora Capital Associates. Dominic Costello, who is a President and Principal of Ricky's NYC. And last but not least, Richard Wagman, who is the Senior Managing Director at Madison Capital. So, you've been around on the show once or twice. Is the retail market doing well today?
The retail market right now is about as hot as it's been the past few years. There's been some contrary reports in the papers, but the reality is the demand.
Yeah, that's how they sell papers.
Right. The demand is up. The momentum is incredible. We're seeing new names come into town all the time, national, international, and it's just certain markets have eclipsed where they were pre-crash.
What about rents?
I'll tell you, it's amazing. On the rent side, we certainly saw a fall off in 2008 to the tune of anywhere from 15 to 30%. And this is in select markets around the city. Like Jeff has said, we've seen it come back as far as right back to where we were in 2008. And in some markets like Fifth Avenue, we've seen it actually higher. It's amazing.
You are the tenant.
Yes.
How are the rents?
It depends on which landlord. It really does. We try to find those landlords that don't want to see their space vacant for too long and would rather have.
But that's during the Halloween season. But you have permanent stores.
Yeah.
I mean, how many?
27 stores this month. We're opening 2 new ones.
Where are the 2 new ones?
One's in Park Slope and in Brooklyn, and the other is in Hoboken, New Jersey, our first New Jersey store.
So how do you think you're going to do crossing over the river?
Oh, excellent, excellent. A lot of people in Hoboken is like,
No, you see, Hoboken
York.
is really an extension of Manhattan, of the 5 boroughs.
Exactly.
Hoboken and Jersey City are those situations. The rest of New Jersey is a different market.
Yeah.
And for retail in New Jersey, it really survives because you don't pay sales tax on clothing, which is a big situation. Do you think, with regard to that, do you think certain retail sales have gone down because the clothing sales tax has changed in the city? You remember there was no sales tax less than $110.
You mean, did it bring people over the border to New Jersey to shop? I'm not so sure that that's a big driver. I don't think that had too much of an effect on sales.
So which markets today, I mean, you have over what?
We have $1 billion that we own and manage in New York City, all in
square
Manhattan.
Footage, how many square feet would you
We're
say?
in excess of a million square feet.
A million square feet of retail, correct?
It's misleading because some of it's office, some of it's retail, but.
And you?
We probably own over 1 million feet of retail and some office space in Manhattan. So
what is, in your opinion, everybody knows that Fifth Avenue is a great market, but Fifth Avenue is two different markets.
42nd Street to 49th Street,
that is correct.
and then everything else.
You know, I think it's even 3 markets if you look at it this way, because I think the 34th Street to 39th Street or 40th Street is one market which really hasn't done that well. I mean, you have a lot of vacancies.
Sure.
You know, the CompUSA has been closed for a couple of years.
The HSBC site, the retail.
The HSBC site. Then you go to 42nd Street to 44th, which wasn't that great. Then, so you have a tale of many cities on Fifth Avenue. What about besides Fifth Avenue? What about Third Avenue in other markets?
Michael, first of all, you have to understand that the markets are, there are specific submarkets on each of the avenues, just like you talked about on Fifth. You have that on Third Avenue, you have that on Second Avenue, you have that downtown, you have it on Broadway. So you have this differing neighborhoods. But really, if you look at what are some of the hot neighborhoods today, Times Square is a very exciting neighborhood.
The hottest in the country.
Really one of the hottest in the country. We see it, and we hear from all kinds of retailers that want to be in that market.
I mean, you know, Disney opened up their largest Disney store in the world.
Forever 21.
Forever 21.
Aeropostale.
It's a very exciting market.
American Eagle.
And of course, down on Broadway in Soho is a very exciting market. You have a lot of international retailers that want to be there. You have international tourists, you have local residents, you have commuters that want to be down there. Everyone is down shopping on Lower Broadway in Soho.
And it keeps expanding. To your point of sub-markets within a market, Soho, when it first started, was probably 2 blocks, Broadway to Spring Street. Now it's down to Canal Street.
What about Tribeca for retail?
To me, I see Tribeca as more of a service retail area. A lot of restaurants, a lot of sort of community. You know, the traditional chains, the nationals. There's probably not enough drivers down there, and not enough foot traffic.
But what's interesting about Tribeca, and not to contradict you, Jeb, but
please
what's interesting,
come on,
and I love Jeb. I think Jeb's
You
great. What's interesting about Tribeca is what's happened is it's moved down further south. Tribeca has moved down towards more like West Broadway and Chambers Street. Has really become an important epicenter for Tribeca because you have the subway, so you have great foot traffic, and then of course you have the new retail at 101 Warren, right, where you have Bed Bath & Beyond, you have Barnes & Noble, and you have Whole Foods. So it's a big traffic driver to that submarket. And then, of course, as you get further downtown, you have, you know, there's more,
so you know,
that much closer World Trade Center.
Prior to the show, we were talking about downtown, and you know, certain people, you know, I have a friend, Ofri Yardeni, who I took downtown, and he says, downtown? He's so anti-downtown. I mean, he doesn't, you know, he's not spent enough time there. He owns a lot of property, and he'll never go there. Vornado is a good example. They've been on my show, and they don't like downtown. What's your thoughts about downtown?
We couldn't be more excited about what's going on right now down in Wall Street and downtown. You're going to have the new development that Westfield's going to do at the World Trade Center, the new retail at World Trade Center. The buildings are being built. The amount of tourism that's expected to come visit, they say, is going to be in the top 3 tourist destinations in the country.
It happens to be the #1 tourist attraction right now.
Right.
That's right. So you can imagine the kind of tourism you're going to get, plus all the new residents that have moved down there, in addition to the commuters that go down to Wall Street and work down in Wall Street. It's a tremendous opportunity, and for retailers, it's going to be a very important expansion base for New York City.
Mr. Retailer, how's downtown?
We had a temporary Halloween store down.
You had a temporary Halloween store. Why would you put a regular Ricky's? Which,
you know, part of our plan is test out the area with a temporary store.
So basically, you know, you're the guy who gives the temporary thing. If I like it, maybe I'll stay there.
It's true. It's true. We've done a few deals last year based off of the Halloween before. for permanent stores the year round. It's just funny listening to all the locations and these
So
guys
what
are
is
talking
your
about-
best
And
location?
I have a store in that location.
No.
I don't know. I have one in that location.
But
It's
what
just-
is, you know, but I think that's an important thing. Of your permanent stores, where is your best location?
You know, the store I would say that we get the most traffic at would be Broadway below Houston Street. And we have a store in Tribeca as well, and it's not quite the same
But don't you have
traffic.
a store, I think, in the Garment Center or the Times Square area? I just passed
39th and Broadway.
39th and Broadway, passed
We
the
call
store
it
the
Times
other day.
Square.
No, I mean, that's a good location for you also.
It's gotten to be, and you know, all the changes they've done with the cutting down the street traffic, and they put in that pedestrian.
Does that help you, or?
I think it has. I
I
think it's made
think it may
so
have-
much nicer.
Drivers, people driving cars don't like it over there.
No, but it's made it. I mean, before the whole area would be trucks and block. You couldn't see the retail. It wasn't very good. I think it helped a lot. I like
you
it.
know, let's try to look at certain other markets. You said you've gone into Hoboken. Let's stay. Have you gone into the boroughs, or have you been
I
just
have
Manhattan
not.
centric?
We're 100% Manhattan. We're very keen to be in the boroughs. We think the boroughs are very exciting markets. To be in Queens, to be in Brooklyn.
I mean, you realize that in Queens, the Queens Center happens to have one of the largest grosses in the world over there. It's a great market over there, and you know, Vornado recently opened up, you know, Century 21 and Kohl's over there. That's doing very well, and I know what's happening. You know, Eddie Blumenfeld, when they originally said, you know, in Manhattan, East River Plaza there was a big question, but it's 97% leased right now.
Yeah,
and
it looks
seems
great.
Doing,
Have downtown Brooklyn, Fulton Street,
I mean,
strong market,
look,
Atlantic
I grew
Center.
up. I grew up in Brooklyn.
So
I
did I.
remember Fulton Street. Fulton Street was always a market, and I think Fulton Street today is much better than it was a couple of years ago. I mean,
Well,
the
the rents were
neighborhoods.
higher a few years ago, but
No, but I think the area is becoming more gentrified.
No doubt.
You
It's
know,
changing.
because of the residential, the 24/7 market over there. What about Williamsburg? Do you have?
We had a few deals, you know, possible in Williamsburg. We like it a lot. Very specific.
Bedford Avenue,
client.
great.
Yes.
we're
It's
currently in contract on a large
lot of
development site in
traffic.
Williamsburg on the corner of North 4th and Bedford, and right next door to a new Duane Reade, and HSBC opened up the first nationals really to come to that block. The area is on fire, and
But I think, you know, it's location. Anything close to that L line is great.
right.
Yeah.
If you go
Now,
off the L line,
You go off the L line, but you know where the edge is, Jeff Levine's property over there.
Right.
It's a nice site, and it's a community over there. But it's a distance. You know, you have to look at it
it's
that
all
way.
changing though. Like you said, it's all gentrifying. We have a residential component to our business where we own by default. We're lenders, so but we've ended up owning many properties in the Bushwick section of Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy, and it's really changing. It's turning around. It's the tenants that are coming into the market are young urban professionals that are spending money. It's really.
I
What do
think,
you-
I
what do you
think
see?
like Harlem, Brooklyn, I mean, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, when I would pitch Brooklyn or Harlem to retailers, they would look at me like I was, you know, speaking a different language. They didn't understand how significant a market, both Brooklyn and...
But you know, I think Harlem really, you know, we were joking before about Bobby and, you know, the Syrian merchants on 125th Street, who always had stores over there. But I think Harlem USA made a major change in Harlem.
We did the leasing for Harlem USA, and when we would bring, honest to God, when we'd bring retailers up there, we couldn't sometimes get them out of the car. They had this perception that 125th Street was a dangerous street, and even 15 years ago, it was not a dangerous street. It was no more dangerous than 34th Street was.
It all depends on where on 125th Street in the market. I would say to you, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, East Harlem and First Avenue.
East Harlem.
Yeah.
This is West,
tough.
right?
But that's right. You know, you know, it's east to west,
Correct.
and the market over there. You know, and it's
But the
done well.
demographics of Harlem are there's so much money up there.
But the interesting thing is retail has done well because there are a lot of people. Residential in Harlem is down.
right.
The
Yes.
residential condo sales are
Right.
down.
Down
The
in
prices,
half.
I know the guys at Fifth on the Park and the other situation, it's not really a great market over there.
Yeah, there's a lot of inventory, I think, and I think that it's a lot of people haven't made that
That's right. The residential inventory is not that good. But you know, if you look, I was the other day on 110th and Broadway on Saturday night. You know, near Columbia, it's a big market over there. I think it's a great market. But I think, you know, you have to go where the Heights is a certain thing. Inwood, there's, you know, as we said, there are different neighborhoods in the area. What about Long Island? I mean, are you allowed to go out there? I don't know. But, you know, do you have to get your passport over there?
Long Island.
I didn't say deal. You know,
Long Island as well. I mean, again, New York and I should say the tri-state region is just, you know, usually #1 on most of the national retailers' hit list, and generally when they're coming to New York, if they're planning a somewhat substantial expansion, they usually start in the city and then spoke out. But you know, the Long Island is seeing as well. I mean, there's my office just completed a couple of big deals out in Nassau, and there's quite a bit of demand.
It's a different market. It's strip centers, malls.
Right. So,
you know, Manhattan is street retail, and we focus on street retail only. So we don't own too many holdings in Long Island.
But you know, what's interesting is when you compare Long Island to street level retail in New York, is that really a lot of the submarkets that we were discussing earlier, they're convenience retail, really. So you have people like drugstores, like Ricky's, banks, supermarkets, and others that it looks like some of the community shopping centers in anywhere USA, except we have very good demographics here.
For a lender's perspective, you know, out of even, you know, if you go into the boroughs, a lender really wants a grocery anchored retailer. They don't mind a strip, but they're not really interested unless there's a grocery anchor over there who's going to bring something in. You know, the pizza parlor might do well and the dry cleaner, but you want somebody who has more dependency in the future.
So what's wrong with a Walgreens or a Duane Reade, you know, drugstore anchored convenience center, no different than you would find in Long Island?
I think, frankly, Richard, what we were saying before is, you know, when Ricky's was Love's, you know, the drugstores, and when I grew up in Brooklyn, you know, the drugstore had Doc the pharmacist. It was a 2,000 square foot store. It was
local operators.
Okay, local operators was a different world. Today, you know, if you look at Duane Reade, and I think you did the lease on 57th Street and 3rd Avenue, I mean, that's a superstore. They opened up 3 mega stores, and 40% of Duane Reade is now groceries because of the change. And you know, they've done this, and people are accepting it. They're not the cheapest price.
You know, I think a suburban customer hasn't really got it in their head yet that they should go to one place to get their Duane Reade type products and then another place to get their food. They go to, like, I live now in the suburbs, and my wife isn't going to stop in a CVS or something. She's going to ShopRite, and she's going to get everything.
Only in Manhattan.
It works in Manhattan.
Right. I mean,
it's very
Manhattanites buy groceries in their drugstores, and I mean, it's a phenomenon. Only
they don't cook too much.
Right. You know what?
No storage.
The bodega is being competed. Duane Reade is becoming the
local bodega.
And I mean,
they've done a beautiful job with their stores.
A
beautiful job.
They've done a great job. I think Walgreens, and I think even the marketing idea of keeping the Duane Reade name as opposed to Walgreens, even though they're owned by the same people. You know, it's really a good marketing skill over there. You know, I think in a way it's like Starbucks owns Seattle-based coffee. Right. You know, and people don't realize it's the same coffee, but it's a different marketing. But with regard to that, do you think we're going to have as many Starbucks continuing to open, or other coffee places?
Well, I mean, they've got a pretty good hold on the market. There was just, I don't know if any of you saw it, there was a piece this week in the Post about how many, a number of chains in the city, and how many, you know, Starbucks had, I think, 225 locations just in Manhattan. Subway was like 418 or something. But 225 is a lot of. They're
well saturated.
You know,
I mean, they're not going to continue to expand
Juan
at the pace that they
Valdez
have.
tried to open up. They had 3 locations. I think they've closed one of them.
I'm not sure what exactly that was. If that was more of a
marketing.
Yeah, I think that was marketing. It was exactly.
So as landlords, what type of tenants do you like? Both of you, I mean.
We're looking for national retailers in most of our locations. Most of our holdings are on streets like Broadway and Soho and 34th Street, Madison Avenue, and those type of streets cater to large national, well-financed retailers. So that's pretty much what we shoot for. We just did a deal with Sephora in a meatpacking district.
Right.
We're redeveloping the corner of 13th and 9th next door to Pastis. We did a 4,500-foot flagship deal with Sephora, so that market's changing. Meatpacking is
Incredible. That
incredible.
market
It's
is,
hot.
yeah.
So what's the next meatpacking district? I mean, is it Bush? I mean, you know, people.
A couple of years ago, meatpacking was nothing. So
Paul Pariser was on a show about 8 years ago, and he tells that when he bought 111 8th Avenue, and he had to bring the New York State teachers down to the property, the transvestites were around the block in the neighborhood, and they said, "What are you buying?" And you know, no one would believe what has transpired to the Chelsea area over there. And, you know, it's
They had
What's
a-
cool about
they
the
had a lot of
meatpacking
vision.
is you know, the streets are cool. It's a very cool looking.
Ever Ricky's near the meat
No,
market?
no, you know.
Can't afford those rents.
Well, no, you know, also we had a little experience where we opened a store on Mulberry Street a few years, 5, 10 years ago. It was like very sexy and a lot of press, and everybody was selling us. So you got to, this, I think it's called Nolita right now.
Yeah.
We took a store there, did nothing. It's like you have to be very careful with some of these areas that get a
You
lot
know,
of press.
But that brings out another situation. A lot of people were very impressed with the Bowery. Now, I think the Bowery is like Harlem, different markets of the Bowery.
Yeah.
You agree?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the Bowery, to be honest. I think, you know, John Varvatos was clearly the anchor, and I'm not sure if his motive was truly to be on the Bowery or to take over the CBGB space.
Right.
Exactly.
I think that was sort of his calling. Look, there's museums, there's nighttime, and I think it's got some of the makings of a hot market, but retailers so far to me have not expressed a strong desire to go down
What
that
about Houston Street? East and west.
Houston Street is, you know, it's a tricky retail area, I think.
Never
More
performed
service,
well. Never
right?
performed.
More of a service. I could see you guys probably,
Maybe east, you mean?
Yeah,
Down
yeah,
that way?
east.
Possibly.
Right.
We have a good customer base,
by
East Village.
Ludlow and
Yeah.
yeah.
You know
We
what
have-
I think the next hot market is? It's Wall Street. It's downtown. It's going to be.
You think it's Wall Street?
I think it's not just Wall Street. It's markets like Broadway, all down in that area.
I think Broadway is a much better street than Wall Street.
Oh, no question. When I say Wall Street, I mean
you're talking the
area.
financial
I
district.
meant the financial
right.
district.
I think the financial district definitely. I think Wall Street is still dark. You know, you have a lot of residential. I don't see.
not doing
I
well.
don't
but it's still
understand
the
if
third or
Tiffany's doing
fourth
well.
largest
whatever.
business district in the country, right?
That's right.
It's the
So,
third. No,
right.
there's no question.
So,
But I think, you know, I think when the Trade Center comes up, it's going to be outrageously doing well. I think a market that's really underserved in that market is Battery Park City because they don't have enough retail. It's a great opportunity over there. You know, the mall, which is now owned by Goldman Sachs, I'm not certain what they're going to do with that over there. What about other parts of Brooklyn? You know, Sheepshead Bay, you know.
I was brought up in Brooklyn, so
I know, that's
I
what
know
I'm-
it well. Haven't lived in the city for the last 15 years, but I think Atlantic Avenue and the Carroll Gardens section, the Fort Greene section. You had an Urban Outfitters open up on Atlantic.
Right.
You have a Trader Joe's that just opened on Atlantic.
The Trader Joe's, you know, that's a situation. The Trader Joe's has been unbelievable. Every store you can't get into,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
When you go to the
Amazing.
14th Street
Hot
store,
retailer.
people tell me they wait online. If they're a husband and wife to get on the situation. I understand the one on 72nd Street is doing great right now. The one on 6th Avenue is doing great. Now, the Trader Joe, the family, they're two different cousins, own a company called Aldi. You familiar?
Yes.
Now, Aldi is opening up their first location in where the Vornado Shopping Center is on the ground floor level.
in the
So-
boroughs.
In the boroughs in Queens, but you know that's a situation over there. They believe, but you know New York City does not have enough supermarkets or groceries and so on.
Yeah, New York City, you know, really it comes down to very simple fundamentals in New York City, right? It's supply and demand. You have limited supply of new potential retail spots around New York City, and you have continued demand, as we've heard today, from all the big national, international, and even some of the, you know, smaller local tenants that continue to want to be here. You'll continue to see that those fundamentals work in favor of the retail markets in the city.
Here's a question, and it relates partially because we've done restaurants. What happens to the restaurant? Now that retail is doing well, what happens, how difficult is it going to be for a restaurant to go into a good retail site or an undercapitalized retailer?
They're going to go to different markets. So it's a natural transition of what happens in these submarkets that we discussed. So you see tenants that'll move from 3rd Avenue down to 2nd Avenue, from 2nd to 1st Avenue. These are the same restaurateurs that will move.
Unfortunately,
they can't pay the rents.
Unfortunately, a restaurateur, as the eminent Shelley Fireman and a couple of other guys have said to me, I must make certain I can't live on one meal a day.
Right.
I can't be a luxury restaurant is not going down to 1st Avenue unless it's in a major market.
Some restaurants will do what these guys did at their building, the meatpacking. You go multi-level. You go upstairs, you go downstairs. They can't afford
ground floor rent.
Correct.
So we just did, in the same site I was talking about earlier, the Sephora flagship on the ground floor. We made an entrance. We're currently redeveloping the building. We made an entrance on 13th Street, 7-8 feet wide, 2 elevators going up to the 2nd, 3rd floor, and a new rooftop terrace. Obviously, that market is hot today from the restaurants, nightclubs, but they need to go up or down. It's difficult.
New Yorkers are trained again, like no other city. We go up and down,
Right.
and we don't even think twice about going to a supermarket.
We're not
downstairs.
great at going into malls.
Vertical
That's the
retail
problem.
hasn't really
Right.
worked in Manhattan.
No,
But
you know
like in
what?
Chicago, we own.
In reality, you know, when I worked for Apollo, it was terrible because I used to write all these articles talking about how I dislike vertical retail, and the Time Warner Center is probably the only successful because Charles Cohn's property on 3rd Avenue really has not been a great retail, and Trump is not a great retail, and vertical retail has not
The
done
only
well.
city
Don't
I've
tell
seen
him
it
that,
work
by
is
the
in
way.
Chicago.
Yeah, well,
The only city I've seen vertical retail work is in Chicago at Water
Right.
Tower
Although
Place.
I think that the two you mentioned were probably not prepared properly and done over today. I think Manhattan Mall does okay. JCPenney is
turned
doing,
around.
yeah.
Manhattan Mall has cut down their tenants.
That's right.
When Manhattan Mall was built, there were maybe 100 tenants. Now the majority of it is JCPenney. You know, so it's been
They brought an anchor.
Right.
So-
You know, they took over the site completely. You know, it was a different market. Coupled with that's really part of the 34th Street, you know, Herald Square location. You know, it's a different market. What about 8th Avenue? We only have about 30 seconds. We were talking before. 8th Avenue?
I don't know anything on 8th Avenue. Don't really.
We
it's
don't, but we like it a lot. We think
Yeah.
it's.
You think it
we
has
think
some
that there's some
potential?
evolution
8th
going
Avenue
on.
downtown?
Just in
Chelsea
general. Yeah,
area?
Chelsea and.
We have 2 stores. We have one on 23rd between 7th and 8th, and one on 17th and 8th. And for us, it's a great market.
So, you know, when 27 minutes fly by, I got to have you guys back later on in the season. I really would like to thank the gurus of retail for giving me their insight. Jeff Roseman, Bobby Carey, Dominic Costello, and Richard Wagman. See you next week.
Major funding for this program has been provided by grants from Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and Perfect Building Maintenance, New York Community Bank, All Nation Renovation, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, Greenberg Traurig, LLP. Additional funding has been provided by grants from AVR Realty Company, LLC, Briarwood Organization, Capital One Bank, C.B. Richard Ellis, Cushman & Wakefield, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Eastern Consolidated, Hal Fettner, Durst Fettner Residential, Stephen Napolitano, First American Title Insurance Company, Friedman, LLP, Gemini Real Estate Advisors, LLC, Genova, Burns and Gian Tomasi, Grubb and Ellis, Investors Savings Bank, Jack Jaffa and Associates Real Estate Consultants, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Madison Realty Capital, Markham, LLP, Marcus and Millichap Real Estate Investment Services, Margolin Weiner and Evans, LLP, Massey Knackle Realty Services, M&T Bank, Meridian Capital Group, the Moynihan Group, Newmark Knight Frank, Orphanides and Associates, Siami Development, Inc., SJP Properties, Sterling and Sterling Inc., RAL Companies and Affiliates, LLC, Spandrel Property Services, Urban American.